Welcome to season 6 of Chat with the Chair. I'm Jennifer Murphy, CFMA's 2025-26 chair. This season's going to be about how you can find endless possibilities through CFMA through discovery, connecting, and thriving. I'm thrilled to kick off the season with someone who's been a big part of my own journey, both as a mentor and a friend, former CFMA chair Pat Cebelak. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Good, great. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you first got involved with CFMA?
Sure. Back in 1999, I was working for a public accounting firm, and I served, different contractors and construction companies from a public accounting standpoint. And some folks in that organization said, "Hey, you really need to, if you want to serve contractors, if you want to be in the construction industry, you need to join the CFMA." And it was through that recommendation that I attended my first chapter meeting in Lansing, Michigan. And shortly after, knew that that was the place that if I wanted to meet contractors and get involved and really know the industry well, I needed to be a part of that group. So I joined back in 1999.
Wow, wonderful. You and I had actually crossed paths professionally kind of before CFMA connections. Um, and then we reconnected through the mentorship program when I became a mentee, and you were my mentor. Can you kind of tell what the mentorship program meant to you, both as a mentor and a CFMA leader?
Sure. So um, shortly after joining CFMA around 2002, I transitioned into being a general member because I went to work for a contractor. And you and I had kind of met in those roles. You were working for a trade partner. I was working for a GC, and we had gotten to know each other through our qualifications process. You had some questions on, I don't know if it was contractual issues or whatnot. And then, through my evolution at CFMA, I became involved in the mentor program. You and I became part of that program together. And for me, I think the most important part, one, I was mentored by Dick Rice, and I had a great experience. And after serving in some roles at CFMA, I thought, that mentorship program with Dick Rice, and then also I had some mentoring from Pat Monet, who's also a former national chair. I, I thought, no better way for me to give back than to start being a mentor in the mentor program versus just being a mentee. So it was through that experience, through my positive experience that when the time was right, I jumped into being a mentor or for other folks who are on their journeys in CFMA.
Thank you. And it was a great experience for me. I mean, it was really, I got fortunate. I feel like I got paired with an amazing mentor that helped kind of steer, give me some pushes in areas I needed pushes in and gave me some guidance. And, I know that you've played an integral role into me being here this year as the chair, just helping, guide and help me set some CFMA goals and seeing some possibilities there were for me beyond just some committee volunteers. So, I think it's an amazing program, and now being involved as we continue to try to pair mentees and mentors together to build our leadership pipeline within CFMA. I think it's an amazing program. So you served as a 2013, 2014 CFMA national chair. But as you had mentioned earlier, you started with your local chapter in Lansing. What did that path look like from becoming a member through serving in the Lansing chapter to kind of ending up at the national as the chair?
Sure. Um, I once I got involved, as I mentioned earlier, once I got involved in CFMA from a local level, I mean, just the energy of the folks involved in the chapter kind of sucked me in. And, I met a bunch of new people that I didn't know before, a bunch of different leaders for different organizations that were involved. And it was just it was just that positivity, that connection, that networking, that learning that just drew me in to the Lansing chapter. And then it was one of the chapter presidents at the time, said, "Hey, if you'd like to get involved, we'd like you to, have you step out. We'd like you to be involved in, this committee," which I ended up doing, and then ultimately got asked to serve in chapter leadership. So it was that one-on-one connection that I had with a chapter leader and that outreach and just the whole positivity of being involved locally that led me to ultimately an officer's position there where I went, from treasurer to vice chair to chair of the local chapter and just got to see the inner workings of how to make a chapter go, how to, rally the troops, how to get people out, how to keep people interested, how to communicate to folks. Um, and then after kind of going through that at the chapter level and part of that responsibility being able to pass along chapter leadership to the next group, I needed a place to be involved in something. I needed to find a different role, and it just made sense. Having started to attend a few national conferences, and I saw the early morning breakfast where you could come and learn about being a volunteer. I went to one of those and met a few folks. I think Brian Summers was there, and ultimately that led to my involvement on a national committee where I got asked to head up a task force, the accounting practices task force. I did that for a couple of years and then got asked to, "Hey, you're doing a great job on this task force. You're contributing a lot. We love what you're speaking up. Would you be interested in being on the finance committee?" I ended up being on the finance committee for a period of time and then, just kept wanting more, wanting to get more involved and expressing my interest in it. I got asked by Vicky Spots to be on the executive committee. And there again, never been one to, sit in the back of the room and shut up. I always was, sitting in the front row and asking questions and contributing where it was appropriate. And ultimately got tagged and asked to be an officer, and that was a life-changing experience to go through the chairs and lead the organization for the time that I was involved. So it was just my desire to keep wanting to learn, wanting to contribute, and really wanting to ongoing connect with people in this industry in a lot of different ways that led me down to the leadership path of ultimately being the chairman.
That's amazing. It's very ironic. I mean, I think a lot of us take different paths, but I think the common thread is that we're Michiganders, and so we the Detroit Lions and drinking the blue Kool-Aid, they say. I say the CFMA Kool-Aid. I got into the
Yeah,
just met people locally and got asked to be involved at the local, and when you got done with that, there was this passion and energy, and I felt I got so much more out of CFMA than I put in for the meeting. And so going to national, then being asked, from subspecialty to conference program to the mentoring program to finance, and ultimately the same thing, exec, and now as a national officer. But it's from being a small contractor in West Michigan that doesn't do much outside the work, the exposure and the
absolutely.
leadership, the strategic thinking, the things that I get from CFMA have just been life changing. And I mean, I know you can speak to it. The friends we've made,
Absolutely.
our families become friends, and we look forward to
Yep.
seeing each other all the time.
No, absolutely.
So another part that is really, and it's been important to me, and I know it's been important to you in the roles, is CCIFP. And you played a
Sure.
pivotal role in the merger between CFMA and at the time the Institute of the CCIFP. Can you walk us kind of through what that experience was like?
Sure. So back at, I think it was 2007, I believe, when I first got on exec, I was tagged as the liaison between the executive committee and the institute. And I attended some of the Institute's officer meetings. I was a conduit through which information was passing back and forth. And I just saw from the early stages of my involvement in that role as the liaison that, for whatever the reasons were that we set those organizations up separate, it just didn't feel right. We were all part of the same team, part of the same CFMA family, per se, and it just felt like there was this disconnect between the leadership groups, between the organizations, and we're kind of in the same boat, but just rowing in different directions. And it 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 was something that I just endeavored to try to change because it was negative. It was not positive. It was a negative. And um, I worked really hard during my time as a leader to bring the organizations together. There were different internal and external barriers that got in the way of bringing the organizations closer together and in a more synergistic fashion. But ultimately, I think the timing was right, the people were right, and I was asked to help out as part of a team to figure out a strategy and implement a strategy that ultimately brought the Institute into CFMA and created the certification brand of the Institute within a one organization structure. And it was with that team of folks that we, laid the groundwork for the positives, what it would mean for the organizations to be together, what the synergies would be, what the ultimate positive outcomes would be. We answered a bunch of the unintended consequences of, making that decision and making that recommendation. We held a bunch of town halls to over communicate the whys and the wheres and the whats to the various membership groups. And ultimately, we were able to get that, kind of coming together, that merger put together. And then the following year, I served as the chair of the certification department within, or the certification group within CFMA, to kind of help smooth over, some of those first 1, 2 year jitters of merging an organization and trying to merge cultures and merge operations together. So I was part of that as well. That I think ultimately has led us to where we are today, which is a one organization group where everybody is rowing in the same direction and everybody has a more common vision of what the future should look like, what we want the vision for the future to be for certification. And I think we're poised to really move the needle on where certification goes in the future now that we've got a steady and hard foundation of both organizations coexisting under one umbrella. And it's I think it's much more positive than it was in the years that when I first discovered it and it was really disjointed.
Well, thank you. I know that it was sometimes painful process, but I would agree with you. I mean, for me, I got my CCIP probably a little after you, and I never saw the separation. My CCIP was because I was in CFMA, and
Hmm.
as the chair this year, one of my big initiatives is how we continue to push the certification to be recognized across the industry, where people, you now have moved on into the president of a company from just being
Hmm.
the CFO, and where presidents and owners say, I want my accountants in my company to have this certification. What's it going to mean to me? And what's that going to mean to partners when they look at us and say, hey, what do we want to write bonds, and do we want to be their CPA, and do
Sure.
we want to the banks, we want to extend lines of credit to them, and are comfortable with covenant changes and things like that, and getting those accounts and the people that have the certification help those partners feel better. And then we also, as the general members, when I'm interviewing who my business partners are going to be, do they have people on staff that understand um, what construction accounting is? And so I'm really excited to
Absolutely.
as one for us to keep pushing that forward. Um,
Absolutely. I think having folks not only who service your organization from accounting perspective, an insurance perspective, a bonding perspective, um, know the industry and be and demonstrate that knowledge through having the certification designation, but also the folks inside your organization that work in your accounting departments, that work in leadership roles in your finance departments to have that certification so that they are able to demonstrate their expertise and their commitment to the nuances that it takes to understand construction accounting is all about. So I think it's twofold in the internal and the external folks recognizing that the designation is not just something to pass and hang on your wall, but it demonstrates your expertise and understanding all the things that go into being a financial, construction professional. And um, I'm happy to have been a small part of one, making certification come to life, getting it under the umbrella of CFMA in a merged situation, but then also promoting it within CFMA so that we can continue to grow it for the future so that more and more folks can get certified and have their professional, certification that demonstrates to the world that, hey, I understand this industry and I know what I'm doing.
I agree. I agree. And for me, it was once I've spent time in manufacturing and other, and once I was here long
Hmm.
enough and said, this is the industry I want to retire from, I wanted that
Yeah.
certificate to, to say I belong here and I get it.
Yep.
And I also think it's amazing because with the CPE requirements, I have to stay up to date on what's going on. We don't just get to get the certification and say we know it all. So,
Yeah. It's
you know,
good stuff.
yeah. So, you've obviously served locally, you served on the national board, you've done the mentoring, you're still involved through mentorship, a liaison on the leadership development pipeline. What keeps you coming back?
Um, my success in where I'm at today as, being a president at Triangle Associates and being part of the leadership team here, none of that would be possible without my involvement in CFMA, both locally and nationally. Um, Starting at the baseline chapter level and continuing on to exec, then my officer's role, it just helped me, all of that involvement helped me grow as a professional, made me more well-rounded and understanding not just construction accounting, but how to deal with vendors and suppliers and principal partners and how to deal with an executive committee, how to deal with officers and how to deal with staff at CFMA headquarters, how to run a meeting, how to understand the nuances of what it takes to lead an organization of 10, 11, 12,000 members and the commitment involved in leadership. All of those things from the very little things that started at my first chapter meeting to what I do today. I mean, I've taken so much from that it would be foolish and short-sighted for me to not give back, and give back in a way that's meaningful to others like yourself in our relationship together, not only as friends, but, as a CFMA mentor. And, you know, I want to have other people have the same impactful involvement that I had and have those folks feel it to where it leads them on their journey to where they want to be. Whether that's, being a controller, being a CFO, being a project accountant, being involved in the surety industry somewhere, or, some greater insurance field, or banking, or vendor company. I want folks to be able to get from this organization the same types of things that I've got that led me to where I feel like I've achieved a lot of my success because of my involvement.
Yeah, true, very much so. You said once before, CFMA isn't going to drive it for you. You have to drive your own journey. What advice would you give someone figuring out what their CFMA path looks like?
Yeah, I mean, even today, as a person involved in the leadership communication committee, I've got a handful of folks that, I'm touching base with every 6 to 9 months and helping them forge their own paths. And the thing that I tell them is there's no one cookie cutter way to get what you want out of CFMA. You're only going to get as much out of CFMA as you decide to put into it. So one, if you're going to be involved, be involved at a level that's right for you. And if you want more out of it, you're going to have to give more to get more. And there's no right or wrong answer. Being a local leader is just as cool and just as exciting as being a national leader. Being involved in committees and having impact on committees is just as important as being on exec. And there's not one size fits all. And whatever you're comfortable with as an individual, whatever you want to try to get out of it, I think you have to kind of envision that. And maybe that's where, as a leader liaison, I can help clarify and crystallize what that vision might be for, the folks that I work with. But ultimately, um, there's no right or wrong way. You just find what interest you have, what passion you have, what gets you excited about being involved in CFMA, and follow that as far as you want to take it. And you have to work at it. You got to go out and get it. You got to let others know that you're interested, and then ultimately, just keep pushing it forward. And I think if you work hard enough, if you contribute in a positive way, I think ultimately you can achieve a lot of that success with any organization, like I have, like you have.
Well, thank you. I know I'm so excited. We're counting down to less than a month or, from the CFMA national conference. And you attended your first one in, I think you said 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think my first was 2010, but what keeps those events so meaningful to you?
Um, I think like a lot of folks that first get involved, I mean, I believe you come to CFMA for the education, you come for the knowledge and the learning and the ability to increase, your understanding of the industry, and you kind of learn and grow that way. I think the more you get involved, the more you attend national events like the conference, I think that's where you start, through your involvement, developing a national network of friends. And, some of my closest and dearest friends are CFMA members from across this country. That, if they called me or if we touched base, I would do anything for them. And I look forward to all the networking, the laughs, the fun, the reconnecting, the sharing that happens at a national conference uh, with folks that I've known for 20 plus years, 25 years in this business. And then it gives you the confidence, through those connections, then, that as challenges arise in your work life, sometimes even in your personal life. Before we got on this call, you and I were talking about a CFMA member that we know, whose daughter just made a college selection. And
Mhm.
when she was trying to go through her journey of making that, Courtney reached out to me. They came to a game. We tailgated together. Her daughter was with her. They did a campus tour and, gave her the full tour of what it would be like if she wanted to attend
Yep.
Michigan State University. And I think that connection alone would not have been there had it not been for CFMA. And that's why you stay involved. That's why you're part of the CFMA community, because ultimately I think the relationships are so fulfilling. And then, if you do have challenges, you can reach out to folks, you can ask questions, you can, lean on people for information that you may otherwise not be able to get because you have this network of connections across the country.
I can't agree more. I mean, I look at it that I have connections all over the United States that sit in similar roles that I do, and a lot of them could be
Mm,
similar companies, but we're not competitors. So I can call and I
yeah.
can be like, how do you handle this? What do you
Hmm.
do with that? Um,
Absolutely.
and so it's amazing. Or being able to explain to people. I was last week at an NCEO conference for employee owned companies because we are one, and I was sitting with a gentleman who works at a trade contractor and his boss is in CFMA, but he isn't. He hadn't been able to justify it. And we talked about in the local area here, I know the CFO at pretty much every general contractor. And so if I'm
Hmm.
hearing from my team, they're having trouble getting a change order, or we can't get paid, or we can't, it's not a contentious call. I'm calling someone I'm seeing monthly at a meeting going, hey, is there something we're not doing? Is there something we're not? And he's like, I never even thought of that. I'm like, so it's, it gets beyond the education, because those connections become friendships, and it becomes easy to pick the phone up and ask a question,
Absolutely.
or work through a contract detail, or work through a
Yep.
insurance issue, because you know where you're both coming from. And it's not
Absolutely.
uh, can we stick it to each other as a competitor or a GC to a sub? So
Yep.
those things
Absolutely.
are, they're not tangible, but when you think about what they bring value to your company, I think sometimes it's hard to even put that in measure.
Yeah, it's difficult at times to measure how that value proposition works. But you talk to anybody who's been involved for any period of time, y- y- that is immeasurable. Those connections, those abilities to reach out, make a connection, ask a question, confront an issue, get some advice, run something by somebody, or work out a problem before it becomes a problem.
Wow.
I think you and I did that a few years
Yes.
back
Yes.
when I first came here. So, I think it's through that kind of stuff that you can't put a monetary value to an organization on it, but you sure as heck can limit the brain damage and some of the frustrations that you'd otherwise feel, because you have a CFMA community they can reach out to and use as your your connections to folks in other companies. So it really is tough to measure, but it is such a positive benefit.
Well, on a personal note, we obviously can see in the background and your discussion of Michigan State Spartans. So, what do you enjoy to do outside of work?
Well, first and foremost, I'm committed to my family. I've got a lovely wife of 35 years, and we're best friends, and we do everything together. In addition to that, I have a couple of daughters. We've raised our kids on boating. We've always had a boat on the Great Lakes. We enjoy being out on the water. We enjoy going to the lake quite a bit. My wife and I golf together. I'm sure there's folks out there on socials that have seen. We're kind of we like Disney, and we go quite a bit, even without the kids. And my kids are old right now, so it's like, hey, we're not taking you guys. Mom and dad are just going by ourselves, and we enjoy that. And then I think, being involved in all things Michigan State, whether it's basketball, football, supporting the university in some way, through the arts, through music, we're involved there, and we enjoy that as well. So,
I know you're passionate about it. I mean, I got lucky enough. I got to be a tag along to Courtney's daughter's trip to tailgate and
yeah,
check out Michigan State. So, trying to help her make a choice. No.
yep.
Um, so what might be something that people don't know about you that they might be surprised to learn?
Well, there's probably a lot of things that they'd be surprised about. But I think in reflecting on this, I think one of the things that, maybe you have felt that through our mentoring relationship, but for 12 years, um, right out of, well, I was still in college at the time, but for 12 years, I coached high school football. And I was an assistant coach and a scout for East Lansing High School for their varsity football program. I enjoyed, working with the other coaches. I enjoyed coaching kids and trying to help out the team. And that was so rewarding and so fulfilling to me to be a part of, high school football at that level where kids are learning how to, chew gum and walk at the same time as they're competing and playing high school ball and all that kind of stuff. Um, I really had a passion for that and enjoyed that time, and I loved coaching. And if I wasn't working in construction, I'd probably be coaching somewhere because I enjoy that part of a relationship with someone.
Wow. I definitely, I could see it in the mentor relationship.
Yeah,
So, I appreciate you joining me, and obviously part of the reason I chose you as my first guest was because you've been such a big part of my journey. Started out professional, and it's, I count you as a dear friend. And as we talked about, I was able to reach out when I had a situation a few weeks ago just to say I want to bounce off you where I'm
yep,
at, what's going on. And
sure.
so I can't thank you enough for everything you've done, to help me professionally, personally. And I guess I'd ask you if you have any final thoughts, for our listeners, especially those, trying to find their CFMA path.
Well, first and foremost, Jen, thanks for inviting me. You're welcome. I appreciate you. I support you and the organization in any way, shape, or form that I can. And for those folks that are out there trying to figure out their path, uh, you know, not to steal that from Nike, but just do it. Just find your passion, find your purpose, find what you're interested in, and get up every single day and work towards that. As it relates to CFMA, just get involved, jump in the deep end of the pool, put yourself out there. There's a ton of folks that would love to help you on that path. Um, and anybody can reach out to me, just like the folks that I'm working with from a leadership development. I think there's a ton of folks in CFMA that want to give back, and all you have to do is ask for help, guidance, and support, and you'll get it.
All right. Thank you so much.